It's strange how two people can sleep in the same bed and still feel like strangers. The space between our bodies used to be measured in inches. Now it feels like miles. I used to wake up to her breathing, soft, even, comforting. The kind of rhythm that makes you believe in safe places. Lately, though, I've been waking up to silence. Not the peaceful kind, either. The kind that hums like an empty house, even when someone's still inside. It wasn't always this way. We were good once, better than good, even. I used to think of us like a pair of old boots. Worn in, familiar, built for the long haul. But even boots fall apart if you stop taking care of them. We met in a grocery store, of all places. I was reaching for the last can of chili, and so was she. We laughed, she let me have it, and I offered to buy her a coffee. That one coffee turned into a long walk, a few more coffees, and a rainy afternoon in a used bookstore where she told me about her dream of becoming a writer. I told her about my fear of heights. She said she liked men who were afraid of things, it made them seem honest. We didn't rush. We had picnics in the park and danced barefoot in the kitchen to music we both hated but sang along to anyway. She taught me how to make lasagna. I taught her how to parallel park without panicking. It was a quiet kind of love, the kind you grow into. We thought we'd always be like that. But it doesn't happen all at once, the unraveling. No big fight, no dramatic moment. Just a slow fraying of threads. First, it's the way she stopped laughing at my jokes. The way her "good morning" started sounding more like an obligation than a greeting. Then, it was the silence during dinner. We used to talk about everything. Now, I couldn't even remember the last time she asked how my day was. And I wasn't innocent in all this, either. I stopped noticing her hair. She dyed it a shade darker and I didn't say a word. I missed the way she always wore two different socks on laundry day, her quiet rebellion against routine. I stopped asking if she was okay. I stopped listening when she pretended to be fine. We were two people living under the same roof, brushing past each other in the hallway like polite strangers. I started sleeping on the edge of the bed. Not because she asked me to, but because it felt easier than pretending I still belonged in the middle. Some nights, I'd stay late at work just to avoid coming home too early. I told myself it was about the promotion. It wasn't. And maybe the saddest part is, we both knew. We just didn't say anything. I wasn't angry. I was just, not there anymore. And neither was she. You'd think the end of a marriage would come with a bang, shouted words, a slammed door, one last fight to try and hold it all together. Ours didn't. It came with mismatched schedules, mumbled goodnights, and dinners eaten on separate sides of the room. Some mornings, I'd wake up before her and just watch the sunlight crawl across her side of the bed. She used to curl toward me in her sleep. Now she curled away, like I was a cold wind creeping under the blanket. I stopped setting the table for two. Stopped asking if she needed anything from the store. Stopped checking her phone when she left it unlocked. Stopped hoping. That's the thing they don't tell you, grief doesn't always follow death. Sometimes it lives in the everyday. In the way her coffee mug sat alone in the sink. The way her charger was the only one plugged in. The way her voice lost the lilt it used to have when she said my name. I noticed how she folded only her own clothes and left mine in the dryer. How she started buying single-serving yogurts. Just the kind she liked. One mug. One plate. One charger. Everything suddenly felt like it wasn't meant for two anymore. And I don't think she realized I noticed. But I did. She started going out more. Just meeting the girls, she'd say. Or, book club, even though the books stayed stacked in the same untouched pile by the door. Once, she came home wearing perfume I didn't recognize. I asked if she got a new one, and she said, "Oh, I've had this forever," like I was the forgetful one. But I wasn't. I remembered the scent she used to wear, warm, a little like vanilla, a little like something wild and green. This new one smelled sharp, like citrus and steel. Like armor. I didn't ask again. Instead, I started watching the way I disappeared from her day. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. Like a shadow when the lights come on. We used to talk about everything. Now, when I told her something funny, she barely looked up from her phone. When I got good news, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Once, she asked me if I wanted anything from the store, and I said no. She left anyway and came back with 2 bags, neither with anything I'd eat. It was like being haunted in your own home. But I kept playing the part. Smiling when I had to. Answering questions with, fine. Pretending I didn't see the way her phone lit up when she thought I wasn't looking. She was already somewhere else. And I was slowly learning how to be okay with that. Because maybe the hardest thing to admit is that I had stopped fighting for us long before I ever planned to leave. I don't know when I started leaving mentally, but I remember when I stopped setting the table for 2. There wasn't a conversation. No, we need to talk. No breakdown. Just one evening where I laid out a single plate, a single fork, a folded napkin. I ate quietly. She didn't even ask why there wasn't a place for her. Maybe she'd already eaten. Maybe she didn't notice. Maybe she just didn't care. I stopped checking her phone. I used to. When things started to feel off. I'd glance when it buzzed, see names I didn't recognize, emojis that didn't belong to our marriage. But eventually, I realized I didn't want to know anymore. Not really. Knowing wouldn't save us. It would just give me something else to mourn. So I stopped hoping. Stopped waiting for the version of her I used to love to come back. She wasn't gone in the literal sense, her keys still hung by the door, her shoes still sat beside mine, but emotionally. She'd already moved out months ago. I was just the last one to realize it. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop clinging to something that's already slipped through your fingers. Like holding on to water, it never stays. It just leaves you wet and confused and wondering why your hands feel so empty. I began to notice the silence didn't bother me as much. I filled it with music, podcasts, walks by myself. There were whole days where we only spoke in questions. Did you feed the dog? Can you pick up milk? What time's your meeting? No affection. No warmth. No more, I missed you today. I started making lists, mental ones at first. What I'd take if I left. What I'd say. How I'd explain it to my family without making her the villain. That was important to me. I didn't want to burn the house down on my way out. I just wanted to leave with my dignity intact. I thought about the lease, the furniture, the car. But mostly I thought about my soul. And how I'd stopped recognizing it in the mirror. It's a strange thing, detachment. It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like exhaustion. But exhaustion has its own kind of clarity. You stop dreaming and start deciding. So I began quietly preparing. I canceled the dinner reservations I used to surprise her with. I stopped offering to watch the shows we used to love. I took my clothes out of the shared dresser and folded them neatly into a suitcase I kept under the bed, not because I was leaving that day, but because it made me feel like I had options. Like I wasn't trapped anymore. One night, I came home and she was on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. She didn't look up when I walked in. And I realized, in that moment, I could leave and she wouldn't even notice until morning. I stood there, holding the takeout bag I'd picked up for us both, out of habit more than thought, and something inside me just shifted. I put her food on the table. Took mine to the bedroom. Closed the door. And for the first time in a long time, I ate in peace. She asked if I'd be home for dinner. I said maybe. We both knew I wouldn't. It wasn't in the words, it never is. It was in how lightly she asked. Like it didn't matter either way. Like I was a +1 she'd grown used to not having. I sat in my car that night after work, engine off, watching the porch light flicker like it was trying to decide whether it wanted to keep shining or just give up already. I understood that feeling. I thought about going in. Sitting through another meal where we chewed in silence and stared at our phones like they held the secrets to saving us. But then I imagined something different. I imagined a little diner on the edge of town, the kind that still serves coffee in chipped mugs and doesn't care if you linger. So I turned the key and drove there instead. I sat at the corner booth by the window. The waitress called me Han, and poured coffee before I even asked. I ordered pancakes for dinner. Just because I could. No sideways glances. No cold shoulder. No pretending. Just a man with a plate of syrupy pancakes and a sudden realization that he felt lighter than he had in months. That was the moment, really. Not a fight. Not a discovery. Just relief. And once you feel that, you don't forget it. I didn't text her. Didn't say where I was. Didn't make up an excuse. I just let the silence stretch between us and didn't rush to fill it. It was like I'd stopped being her husband a long time ago, and now, I was just catching up to the reality she'd already made peace with. When I got home, she was asleep on the couch, a half-empty glass of wine on the table. Some show still playing in the background. I stood there for a second, watching her. Wondering if she'd stir. Wondering if she'd wake up and say, "Where were you?" Or even just, "You okay?" She didn't. She just rolled over. And I walked past her like I was just another ghost in the hallway. I left the coffee pot empty. That was the first time in years. It sounds small, I know. But every morning since we moved in together, I'd fill it with cold water, scoop the grounds just the way she liked them, light roast, 2 heaping spoons, 1 rounded off. It was muscle memory. Like breathing. That morning, I woke up before her. Stared at the ceiling for a while. Listened to the rain tapping the window. And then I walked into the kitchen and just, didn't. I boiled water for 1 cup of tea instead. She came out a few minutes later, hair still tangled from sleep, that robe she always wore hanging off her shoulders. She walked straight to the counter and stared at the empty pot like it had betrayed her. "No, good morning." "No, everything okay?" Just silence and surprise. She didn't ask. And I didn't explain. That's how I knew we were really done. When you stop explaining yourself. When even disappointment doesn't have the energy to raise its voice. I took my tea and sat by the window. Watched the neighbors leave for work. Heard the garbage truck rumble by. Thought about how many times I'd sat in this same chair wondering when the end would come. Turns out, it didn't come with slamming doors, it came with a man sipping tea alone in a room that used to feel like home. I didn't pack that day. Not physically, anyway. But I took inventory. Mentally moved through the apartment, deciding what I'd take and what I'd leave. I imagined what the place would look like without me in it. Strangely, it didn't feel like I'd be missed. Later that night, she made spaghetti. Just enough for 1 bowl each. No leftovers. No garlic bread, she always used to make garlic bread. I said thank you. She nodded. That was the entire conversation. We sat at the table like 2 people waiting for a bus in the rain, close, but miles apart. After dinner, I took my plate to the sink. Washed it. Dried it. Put it away. She didn't say a word. That night, I didn't crawl into bed beside her. I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling again. There wasn't a fight. No accusations. Just an unspoken agreement that something had ended. The next morning, she made her own coffee. And I took my suitcase out from under the bed. The light came through a window I didn't recognize. That's how the day began. Pale, soft, and a little unsure of itself. Like me. I was in a small, furnished rental across town. Temporary, practical. Nothing sentimental. The kind of place where the cabinets don't stick and no memories wait to ambush you in the hall. It wasn't home, not yet. But it also wasn't haunted. The suitcase was by the door, half unpacked. My toothbrush in a different cup, my clothes in a smaller closet. It felt strange, but not wrong. Like wearing a jacket you forgot you owned. Slightly unfamiliar, but somehow still yours. I made coffee the way I like it, too strong, no sugar. She always said it tasted like burnt bark, but I liked the bitterness. It felt honest. I drank it slowly, watching the steam curl from the mug, and realized something I hadn't in a while: I could breathe. Really breathe. No weight on my chest. No tightness behind the eyes. Just quiet lungs and a moment that belonged entirely to me. It wasn't freedom like the movies show it. No beach sunset or celebration. Just a man sitting at a borrowed kitchen table, realizing he no longer had to pretend. The phone stayed silent all morning. No texts asking when I'd be home. No guilt-laced, "Where are you?" messages. She didn't call. And I didn't expect her to. The hardest part, honestly, was not feeling what I thought I'd feel. There was no rush of relief, no overwhelming sadness. Just stillness. Like my heart had been on mute for so long that now, without all the noise, it didn't know what to do. Around noon, I took a walk. No destination. Just the sound of my feet on the sidewalk and a breeze that didn't ask anything of me. I passed a park, sat on a bench, watched a kid chase a pigeon and laugh like the world was brand new. And I thought, that used to be me. Before the long silences. Before the missed glances. Before I gave so much of myself away that I forgot what it felt like to be whole. I'm not there yet. Not whole. But I can see the road now. And that's something. She said it was her choice. And finally, I made mine. Funny how we always talk about breaking up like it's a two-sided thing. Like there's a table, a map, some negotiation. But most of the time, the leaving starts with one person quietly stepping away, months, even years, before the other catches on. That was her. She left long before I did. Not physically. Not right away. But emotionally. She was gone while I was still buying flowers and asking if she wanted to watch that old movie we loved. She had already started choosing silence, distance, and whatever or whoever filled her evenings when I wasn't enough anymore. And that used to break me. I'd lie awake wondering what I could have done. Where I went wrong. Replaying every missed moment like a courtroom drama in my head. But not anymore. Because here's the truth, people change. Sometimes they outgrow each other, and sometimes they just stop trying. She stopped choosing me. That's on her. But staying in a place where I was invisible, that's on me. So I stopped staying. There was no speech. No grand send-off. I didn't write a letter. Didn't beg for her to notice. I just got up one morning, didn't fill the coffee pot, packed my things, and left the keys on the table. And now, here I am. Not healed. Not whole. But honest. And free. I still have days when I reach for the second coffee cup out of habit. Or think to text her something funny before remembering that silence between us isn't temporary anymore, it's permanent. I'll probably always flinch a little when someone says her name in passing. That's just part of it. But you know what else is part of it? Peace. Peace in drinking coffee the way I like it. Peace in not waiting for someone who stopped waiting for me a long time ago. Peace in the quiet, not because it's all I have left, but because it's mine now. She made her choice. And for the first time in a long time, I made mine too. I didn't move on. I just moved differently. That's the best way I can explain it. People always ask how I'm doing, and I give them the polite answer, I'm good. Taking things day by day. But the real answer is quieter than that. It's not good or bad, it's clean. Like wiping the slate with both hands and realizing your palms are still steady. I go for walks now. Not because I'm trying to clear my head, but because I enjoy the way the light filters through the trees in the late afternoon. I notice that kind of thing again. I picked up cooking, not because I have to, but because it turns out, I like the rhythm of it. The sound of onions hitting the pan. The smell of garlic in butter. No more cooking for someone who never said thank you. Just making things I like, the way I like them. I bought new sheets. Sounds silly, but it mattered. Crisp ones, cool to the touch, no memory in them. The bed doesn't feel half empty anymore. It just feels mine. The apartment's quiet, sure. But it's not hollow. No more waiting up for someone who won't come home. No more pretending I'm not bothered by the way her phone lights up with a name she swears is just a friend. No more watching someone fall out of love with me while I smile and say it's okay. I see friends more now. The ones I lost touch with while trying to keep the marriage alive. We talk, laugh, sit in bars or on back porches with too many mosquitoes and not enough coasters. It's nice. No pretending. No censoring. Just real conversation with people who don't ask me to be anything other than myself. And for the first time in a long while, I'm learning to enjoy my own company. I'm not rushing into anything new. Not dating. Not chasing. Not trying to fill the space she left. Because the truth is, that space needed to be emptied. I didn't know how much of me I'd given away until I was alone enough to count the pieces I still had. And you know what? Turns out I've still got plenty. I've got laughter. I've got a little cynicism, sure, but the kind that keeps me honest. I've got long walks and late breakfasts and the freedom to say no without guilt. I don't miss her the way I thought I would. I miss the idea of who I thought she was. But the woman who stopped asking how my day was, the one who checked out long before I did, the one who stopped being my home, no, I don't miss her. She made her choice. And I've started building a life that doesn't include waiting for someone to choose me back. It's strange how two people can sleep in the same bed and still feel like strangers. What's stranger, though, what no one tells you, is how peaceful it can feel to sleep alone and not feel lonely. I don't flinch at the empty side of the bed anymore. I don't reach out for something that isn't there. The sheets are cool. The room is quiet. My heart isn't panicked. That's enough. I used to think love meant always being there. Holding on. Staying through the silence. But I've learned that love, real love, includes knowing when to let go. When staying becomes another way of disappearing. I gave it everything I had. I bent until I nearly snapped. I waited for laughter that stopped coming, for a touch that stopped reaching, for words that stopped being kind. And when none of it returned, I stopped waiting. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. No emotional monologue in the rain. It's just a quiet understanding, this isn't love anymore. This is absence dressed in routine. So I left. Softly. Silently. Without slamming the door or breaking the plates. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it to save myself. And in doing that, I found something I didn't know I was still allowed to have, peace. I still believe in love. I do. I just don't believe in begging for it. She said it was her choice. She chose distance. She chose silence. And finally, I made mine. You know what's funny? In the end, I didn't really leave. I stayed. I stayed true to myself. Stayed loyal to the man I was before I started shrinking to fit someone else's silence. She walked away without moving her feet. And I followed, hoping to be enough to bring her back. But I was never supposed to follow someone who stopped turning around. And now I sit on this porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun come up without wondering where she is, or who she's texting, or whether she'll look at me today like she used to. I think about how love changes. How sometimes it softens into something deeper. And how sometimes, it just fades. Not every love ends in fire. Some just go quiet. And that silence. That's your answer. So here I am. Older. Maybe a little wiser. Definitely more tired of pretending. But still here. Still kind. Still funny, on good days. Still hoping that next time, if there is a next time, love won't feel like convincing someone to see me. It'll feel like two people who already do. I've stopped asking where it all went wrong. That question doesn't help. It only steals time from what's ahead. What I know now is simple. I wasn't too much. I wasn't not enough. I was just with someone who stopped choosing me. And the moment I stopped choosing that kind of life back, I got mine again. So if you're out there, sitting in a quiet kitchen, staring into a cup of cold coffee, let me say this. Leaving doesn't always mean walking out the door. Sometimes, leaving is when you finally stop waiting to be loved back.